Good afternoon, Sir Jopper. This is my presentation about the personal identification. First is the anthropometry, which was discovered by Alphonse Bertillon. Anthropometry is the study of human body measurement, especially on a comparative basis. Anthropos means man, while metron means measurement. Anthropometry is a branch of anthropology which involves quantitative measurement of human body. The chance for all 11 measurements being shared between two individuals would be 1:4. So, the mugshots is also discovered by Alphonse Bertillon. It was a series, anthropometry is a series of 11 body measurement to identify a individual. So this is the history of anthropometry. In 1884, multiple offenders were identified. Bertillonage was first adopted by French police, where was Alphonse Bertillon was a clerk desk officer. In 1887, it was introduced by the U.S. Major McClure. In 1888, Francis Galton starts research for further anthropometry. In 1894, England adopted the Bertillon system. So next is the portrait parle. Portrait parle was also discovered by Alphonse Bertillon. So these two French meaning, which is the portrait parle, meaning is speaking illness. Portrait parle can be identified as rigorous system for verbal description of physical characteristic of a subject. This is the history of a portrait parle. In 1882, Alphonse Bertillon was called the father of scientific detection. The portrait parle is also called as Bertillonage system. It was started from the observations that human bones is more likely fixed by the age of 20. So these are the things that we can see in a Bertillon card. The eyes, ears, almost all of the part of the body that can identify a person. So this is an example of Bertillon card. So in a Bertillon card, we can see these are the traits that can be identified as a person. So first, these are the shapes of a person. Next, this is what we saw called widow's peak that can also identify a person. So these are the different tones of a person that can also identify a person. So these are the type of hair that many people has a difference when it comes to hair. So these are the type of eyes, and at the right side, those are the measurement of the wide set of the eyes. Next is these are the different types of eyebrows. Next is these are the different types of birds. Next is these are the different types of ears that we can distinguish when someone is being convicted. Next is these are the type of nose. Next is these are the types of a chin. So next is these are the type of a lips. So forensic odontology. Forensic odontology was first discovered by Oscar Amadeo. Oscar Amadeo is the father of forensic odontology. So definition. Forensic odontology is the application of dental science and the administration of the law to the furtherance of justice. It is a specialty that relates dental evidence to investigation. History. This is the history of odontology. In 49 to 66 AD, first dental identification was made. So next is 1066 AD. This was the first to use bite marks as for identification. So 1775, Paul Revere, earliest known as the identification from P. While in 1837 rather, Dr. Edwin Saunders do the eruption sequence. In 1897, first book of odontology was first discovered by the first book of odontology was first published by Dr. Amadeo. So this is the example of a bite marks that can be used in the investigation. Role of forensic odontology. So the first role of forensic odontology is the importance of identifying human remains, human remains decomposed, mutilated, and visually unrecognizable. It also includes the examination of bite marks. So next is the teeth marks may be left in the crime scene. So in some crime scene, we can use the bite marks to identify a person. Scope of forensic odontology. Identifying human remains through dental records. So in some cases, we can identify a person through his dental records. So next is the age estimation. By the teeth of a person, we can also identify the estimation of what is the age of a person. So next is determining the gender. So whether you believe or not, we can identify the gender of a person by the bite marks or by the teeth of a person. So next is presenting evidence in court. So by the use of odontology, we can also present the bite marks in the court as a form of evidence. Last is the recognition of analysis of bite marks. So of course, we will not identify anyone by the use of bite marks. Rather, we study about the bite marks we caught in the crime scene. So next is the tooth has a 5 surface. It is the buccal, occlusal, mesial, distal, and lingual. So these are the example of a surface of a tooth. Next is we will go into the forensic anthropology. So forensic anthropology, it is a specialized area of anthropology that studies human skeleton and how it was evolved throughout the history. So history, this is the history of anthropology. So in 1939, FBI published the Guide to Identification of Human Skeleton. In 1948, Mildred Trotter organized a laboratory to examine of bones. So in 1979, first textbook was published and written by Dale Stewart. In 18, scientists began using skulls to differentiate among individuals. So in 1880s, they are also using the skulls or the forensic anthropology to identify an individual. So in 1932, in 1932, it was held that the opening of a first crime lab. Examination of recovered bones can be revealed whether bones are first human, second age, third sex, height, injuries, nature of wounds, history of accidents, and medical conditions. So development of bone. This I will discuss how the development of bones will be evolved throughout the human. Bones originated from cells called osteoblasts. So we are calling the development of bone through the osteoblast. Ossification is the process of repressing of the cartilage with the hard bone. By the 8th week of pregnancy, we can see the layout of the skeleton of a person through the use of X-ray. A baby has 450 bones and an adult has 206 bones. So when you are a baby, you have only 450 bones. That will be down to 206 because the bones were connected when you are getting older. So bones also contain DNA based on their shape, size, and structure. So not only the hair, the blood, but also the bones has its own DNA. So forensic serology. Forensic serology was discovered by Karl Landsteiner. History. In 1901, Karl announced the significant discoveries of typing of blood. So, in serology, we cannot identify a person by its individual, but we can identify the person by group. He is also discovered, or Karl Landsteiner is the one who discovered that blood is not the same. Nature of blood. The word blood refers to highly complex mixture of cells, enzymes, proteins, and inorganic substances. Plasma. Plasma is the fluid portion of blood. Red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets are the solid material suspended in plasma. So antigens. Antigens, usually proteins, are located on the surface if red blood cells are responsible for the blood type. So red blood cells is responsible for transferring oxygen, while white blood cells is responsible for protection from infection. Antigens and antibodies. So antigens and antibodies is not the same. Antigens are the molecules capable of stimulating an immune response, while antibodies are Y-shaped. So in other words, antigen are the X shape and antibodies is the Y-shaped. DNA fingerprinting was first discovered by Alec Jeffreys. What is DNA fingerprinting? It is a way of identifying each individuals and also not identifying by group. It is also a technique wherein scientists use in identifying individuals. So 8 steps in doing DNA fingerprinting. So first is the isolation of DNA. Second is the digestion of DNA. Third is the electrophoretic separation of different fragments. Fourth is the transfer DNA on nylon. Fifth is the probing or labeling. And sixth is the hybridization. Seventh is the audiography. And eighth is the interpretation of bond patterns. So these are the uses of DNA fingerprinting. First is the forensic science is the use of scientific knowledge in legal situation. So DNA fingerprinting is important in presenting evidence in the court, and it was highly specific. DNA profile also can be used in determining whether a particular person is a parent of the child. So it also, one of the uses of this is individual identification. So I think the most important uses of this is we can identify a person individual, not by group. Unlike the forensic serology, we can just identify the person by the group. So these are the references that I used to make my slide, sir. Thank you, sir.